It starts at 9:14 a.m. UTC with a noise you've never heard from your phone, a gentle chime and a message that looks like a typo. Location unavailable. You swipe up, the blue dot vanishes, and the map becomes a polite guess. A pilot crossing the North Atlantic glances down and sees the GPS annunciator flick to amber. A container ship captain watches a number on the bridge that's been steady for years slip into dashes. A weather forecaster in Oklahoma drags a satellite layer onto the big screen and gets an empty grid. A grid operator in Spain notices the timing trace drift a hair from perfect. Nobody panics. Professionals practice for glitches. But this one doesn't clear. Within minutes, airline dispatchers, maritime control centers, telecom networks, trading floors, and power plants all arrive at the same conclusion. Every satellite just went quiet at the same time. GPS, Galileo, Beidou, GLONASS, comms birds, weather constellations, imaging platforms, all of it, offline. No explanation. Estimated time to restoration, unknown. The first hour is the sound of people doing their jobs. Pilots revert from satellite navigation to inertial systems and ground beacons. The old radio aids, VORs and DMEs, have been neglected but not forgotten. Airways still exist, and controllers know how to use them. Headsets are calm as frequencies fill with reroutes and speed reductions to stretch out the sky and make room for error. Somewhere at the back of the cabin, a passenger makes a joke about reading a paper map from 30,000 feet, and everyone laughs because it's easier than the alternative. On the water, bridge crews pull the sextant case they haven't opened in years and spread out printed harbor approaches. ECDS screens still draw coastlines and soundings, but the position box in the corner blinks DR, Dead Reckoning, a reminder that the ocean rewards humility. Trains proceed more slowly on signals that live on Earth. Trucks miss a turn here and there and rediscover that highways have signs. In rural places where internet backhaul rides a satellite, browsers spin. In cities, phones work but location feels like a rumor. By the 6th hour, you can feel the missing sky in places that never thought about space. Rideshare drivers text. The pickup pin keeps jumping. Where are you exactly? Delivery fleets call dispatch to get paper manifests reprinted with turn-by-turns like it's 2004. Search and rescue teams get a briefing they haven't heard in a decade. Your radios will work. Your 911 calls will come in. Your ability to see a caller's exact location may not. Do not assume your map app knows the trailhead as well as the person who lives there. Credit card networks continue approving payments, but slow down to keep their timestamps in line. They rely on time more than they rely on location, and the best time on Earth usually rides down from a constellation. Without that clean pulse, systems fall back to their own atomic clocks and to time fed by fiber. A little drift is tolerable. A lot is not. Everyone watches the drift. You never knew how much of modern life is just clocks agreeing. Weather coverage takes a sharper hit than anyone wanted to believe. Geostationary satellites that normally serve up a new image every few minutes, cloud tops, storm spirals, water vapor veils, go dark. Forecast centers do not go blind. They were doing weather before space, and radar still sweeps the horizons, while radiosondes ride balloons into the sky like they have for a century. But the big picture shrinks to the footprint of ground instruments and aircraft reports. Hurricanes do not care if your favorite app can't animate them over an ocean. Forecasters get cautious. Warnings become broader, less precise. Fire managers who rely on heat signatures from orbit to spot new starts pivot to aircraft and drones and phone trees and citizen reports. And they say out loud what they always say quietly. Call it in if you see smoke, even if you think someone else will. By evening, airlines put out statements about delays and reroutes and reduced capacity. The sky can carry fewer flights safely without satellite navigation and ADS-B relayed by space. There is no point arguing with physics. Passenger boards fill with amber lines. Cabin crews keep people fed and smiling. You text someone to say you'll be late, and then your member text bubbles don't need the sky, they need towers. In some parts of the world, TV channels that rode space down to dishes blink to black. In others, terrestrial fiber shrugs and keeps going. Offices run. Schools let out. The world is not ending. It is merely heavier to move. Day 1 closes with a round of quiet reassurances and one loud absence. The reassurances sound like this. Most of the internet does not depend on satellites. It rides fiber under oceans and through land. Your phone calls depend more on ground networks than on birds. Your grocery store shelves do not empty because someone turned off a space switch. But the absence is real, precise, ubiquitous, everywhere timing and everywhere positioning are gone at the same time. And 1,000 systems that assumed precision have to relearn how to be approximate without failing. On the morning of day 2, you wake to a calmer world that is still a little wrong. Your weather app has a radar image that makes sense for your county and nothing for the ocean. The forecast discussion reads like a love letter to caution. Farmers get texts from cooperatives with advice on irrigation scheduling and harvest windows that used to be paired with high-resolution satellite crop maps. Today, the advice is based on ground sensors, station networks, and experience. Construction crews that rely on centimeter-level GNSS for staking and paving shift to total stations and lasers, and the slower ballet of people with rods. Surveyors who kept their instruments and their patience are suddenly indispensable. Finance spends day 2 measuring drift and boredom. High-speed trading loves nanoseconds like sailors love wind, but a lot of money is made by systems that can't afford to be steady and slow. Exchanges check that their clocks agree with their peers across town and across borders. Time servers report their wander with the self-importance only a clock can manage. Somewhere deep in a data center, a night shift engineer explains to a VP that, yes, GPS normally disciplines our time, and no, we are not going to type set clock on a hunch. Telecom operators push network time down from Stratum 1 sources over glass. Power grids, which use satellite time to make sure sensors read the same instant in different places, reconfigure torally on local oscillators and cross-checks. Operators increase their margins, the power system equivalent of slowing down when the fog rolls in, and plan maintenance only when they must. You do not want a line crew opening a breaker while a timestamp argues with itself. Maritime control rooms settle into a rhythm that would be familiar to your grandfather. Coastal pilots board ships with notebooks full of currents and informal fixes. Open ocean navigation leans on inertial and stars and radio. It's slower but not unsafe. There are fewer ship-to-shore calls for weather updates because there are fewer satellite phones. HF crackles, again like an old song. Fishing fleets stay closer because uncertainty grows with every mile. A captain who used to brag she could find a buoy with a phone now reminds her crew that the sea is not a spreadsheet. Aviation feels like a time machine in the best and worst ways. The best, crews demonstrate that skill lives under the glass. The worst, schedules ache. You land somewhere later than you planned and discover the baggage belt isn't broken for once. It's just a lot of planes arrived in a little space and everyone is taking turns like adults. In the terminal, an airline employee with a tablet explains to a family that their connection will be tomorrow and means it kindly. In the cockpit, someone smiles at a kid who asked if they can still fly without GPS and says, "Yes, we knew how before you were born, and we still do." Day 2 is when people who love backup systems start to sound smug, and then they try to stop. eLoran advocates point to long-wave towers that, in a few countries, still whisper position on ground waves that ignore skyscrapers and storms. Radio time services beam the world a heartbeat from barns in Colorado and towers in Germany and laboratories in Japan. Fiber networks contribute time not from the sky but from the crust. None of these are as cheap as everywhere or as convenient as a constellation. All of them matter, especially now. City councils that cut funding for backup beacons years ago schedule special meetings. Emergency managers who kept drills alive that nobody wanted to attend send out invites and get immediate yeses. Day 3 arrives with a strange mood, calm competence threaded with a slight ache. It's the day when people who never thought about satellites realize what they miss most is not convenience, it's confidence. The blue dot did more than locate you. It made you feel sure. Without it, you can still do most things. You just do them with a tiny question mark. Couples going on hikes print a paper map for the first time in years and take a photo of the trailhead board. Cyclists ride familiar loops. Truckers pad their ETAs and discover truck stops are friendlier when everyone has a minute. Parents tell kids that tonight they will watch the sky, and they do, and they are surprised by how much they like it with no thought of what rides above it. There are real difficulties by the third day. Remote clinics that use satellite backhaul for telemedicine reschedule appointments where fiber never came. TV stations in rural communities rebroadcast from vans with antennas on masts like they did after storms. Disaster monitors lean on aircraft, drones, and volunteers to map floodwater boundaries that satellites normally paint in an hour. A wildfire jumps a ridge, and someone spots it with binoculars instead of a heat map, and that someone becomes the reason a neighborhood wakes up. Governments issue daily briefings with the same message. Essential services continue. Backups are working. Patience is not optional. In the background of the 3 days, there is a parallel story that most people will never see but will feel later. Space agencies and militaries and companies dump days' worth of telemetry into rooms where people specialize in orbits and noise. They want to know whether this is software or sun or sabotage or a bad coincidence nobody ever modeled. They look at what could knock out every constellation at the same time and conclude that the cause matters less than the lesson. If it was space weather, we harden and rehearse. If it was debris or traffic, we manage better. If it was malicious, we build guardrails and treaties that treat timing like water and air. If it was a fluke, we stop relying on luck. 72 hours after it started, the sky returns as quietly as it left. Phones chime. The blue dot snaps back. Pilots get a green light on their panels. Weather centers pull a full disk image, and someone in the room actually claps. Ships update their dead reckoning fixes, and the difference is small, which makes everyone proud. A world nervous system sighs and then starts arguing about root cause and response budgets because that's what nervous systems do. You look at the map on your screen and realize you learned the name of a street this week you used to pass without seeing. You realize your patience grew scar tissue in useful places. You realize that you missed the satellite images not because they are pretty, though they are, but because they showed you the whole Earth often enough to feel like a person who lives on one. A week later, the debriefs are everywhere. Aviation publishes its performance, and it's good. No accidents, a lot of delays, training validated, small holes discovered and patched. Maritime writes long memos about dead reckoning in the age of overconfidence and argues for keeping coastal beacons funded forever. Emergency services list the calls that got harder and the ones that stayed the same, and beg for better location from ground networks as a matter of life and death. Forecasters show paired images, ground-only versus ground-plus space, and the difference is stark. Someone in a legislature who used to complain about satellite budgets keeps quiet. Grid operators show charts of frequency and phase, and everyone pretends to understand. The bottom line is that the lights stayed on and the lessons got learned. Telecoms publish a paper in a journal you didn't know existed that says, more Stratum 1 references, more diversity, more testing. Engineers and policymakers meet in rooms to talk about redundancy without flinching at the price tag. They outline a simple, grown-up plan that starts at home and reaches up. Keep multiple global navigation systems healthy, not just one. Build and maintain ground backups like eLoran and terrestrial timing so that failure modes are graceful, not cliff-like. Harden satellites against storms and bad actors and keep spare capacity. Manage space traffic and debris. Like we mean it, with norms and enforcement, because orbits are a commons break when nobody tends them. Move some critical timing off space for things that can live without it. Keep space for the things that cannot. Practice. Publish the results. Repeat. For regular people, the lesson is smaller and weirder. We stitched satellites into our lives so seamlessly that we forgot they were stitches. For 3 days, we saw the seams again. We found out that aviation is not magic and neither is shipping, that fiber under oceans is a quiet miracle, that forecasters do astonishing work with and without a camera in space, that your favorite delivery driver is better at their job than the app that rates them, and that you can, in fact, drive across town without a dot if you have to. We learned that time is the hidden scaffold under everything, and that agreeing on time is a social contractus much as it is a technical one. We learned that confidence is a public good. If you were scripting the closing shot, you might skip the boardrooms and the hearings and go back to the people who felt it first. The pilot in the North Atlantic brings the same airplane home the day the constellations return, and when the green light comes back, she smiles but keeps flying the plan because the plan worked. The ship captain takes one last noon sight on a clear horizon, writes the number in the log, and puts the sextant back in its case with a little more affection than before. The weather forecaster stands in front of a full-disk Earth and calls out cloud tops and bands of water vapor and Asmal cyclone training along a front like a bead, and the viewers at home see more than clouds now. They see a system. The grid operator toggles a display from local clock to GPOD disciplined and thinks good, not required, and schedules the next drill. And you look down at your phone and see the dot, and you let it guide you, but you also look up at the street sign you used to ignore and you say it out loud, and it becomes part of your mental map again. Someday this episode becomes a footnote. The world will have more backups and friendlier failure modes. Satellites will be tougher, timing more diverse, forecasts richer, systems less brittle. Or maybe it becomes a story we tell every year to justify boring investments that pay off when boredom breaks. Either way, the lesson is the same one technology keeps teaching patient people. Build like rain is coming. Practice when the sun is out, and do not confuse convenience with resilience. The sky is an incredible partner. It is not a guarantee. When it went quiet for 3 days, we discovered the difference and how to be ready when it happens again.